Blazing Saddles didn't just break comedy rules, it torched them completely. Gene Wilder almost missed his own legendary role. Actors clashed behind the scenes, and the studio tried to bury this movie before it ever reached theaters. Get ready for 20 wild revelations that will change how you watch this film forever, plus one jaw-dropping bonus about a horse that lived better than half the cast. So speed up with me, because the list starts now. Number 1. Gene Wilder wasn't even supposed to play the Waco Kid. Picture the first day of filming falling apart within hours. The role of the Waco Kid wasn't written for Gene Wilder at all. Gig Young, an Oscar-winning actor with serious Hollywood credentials, had the part first. But the moment he stepped into the jail cell for his first take, his hands wouldn't stop shaking and his voice kept cracking apart. Then, mid-scene, he collapsed. At first, the crew thought it was a bit of method act. It wasn't. Young was going through severe alcohol withdrawal, and within hours, the studio pulled him from the production entirely. Mel Brooks didn't panic or call for open auditions. He walked off set, picked up a phone, and dialed the one actor he trusted without question. No script reading, no negotiation, just a simple ask, "Can you get on a plane tomorrow?" Gene Wilder didn't ask about the pay or the plot. He just said yes. And by the next morning, he was standing on set, jet-lagged and completely unrehearsed. The second the cameras rolled, he became the Waco Kid instantly, and nobody in that theater ever questioned the casting again. Number 2. Richard Pryor shaped the movie but never got to star in it. Before a single scene was shot, one voice was already defining the entire tone of this film. Mel Brooks brought Richard Pryor in as a co-writer, and Pryor went straight for the throat. He refused to soften a single joke, and he gave the script something it didn't have yet: real danger. Brooks didn't just want his writing either. He wanted Pryor in the lead role, because Pryor didn't just make audiences laugh, he made them uncomfortable first and laugh second. The studio saw it differently. Instead of a comedic genius with something urgent to say, they saw a liability, a man whose off-screen headlines made executives nervous. So they pulled him from consideration before he ever got close to the casting decision. Cleavon Little landed the role instead, and he was smooth, sharp, and unforgettable in it. But the rhythm underneath every punchline, the bite hiding behind the laughs, that voice belonged to Pryor from the very first draft. He never wore the badge or rode the horse on screen, but this movie ran on his instincts from start to finish. If you are enjoying this, take 2 seconds and leave a like. Subscribe if you want more videos like this. That support really motivates my work and helps a lot with bringing more content. Number 3. The studio almost buried this movie before anyone saw it. The very first audience to watch Blazing Saddles wasn't a crowd of fans. It was a room full of terrified executives. When Warner Brothers first screened the film internally, they sat frozen with their arms crossed, watching a rough cut packed with racial satire, slurs, and a horse getting punched in the face. They weren't laughing because the jokes didn't land. They were horrified because they couldn't believe what they were watching. The plan, reportedly, was simple: quietly kill the film, shelve it in a vault, and pretend the whole project never existed. Mel Brooks refused to let that happen without a fight. He pushed for one real test screening with a real paying audience and 0 studio edits. The lights went down, the film started rolling, and for the first 20 minutes, the theater sat in dead silence. Nobody laughed. Nobody moved. Then came a single sound effect that would end up saving the entire film. Number 4. The most famous fart joke in movie history almost got cut. It's a simple setup: a group of cowboys, a campfire, and a pot of beans. One cowboy lets loose a loud, wet, completely unfiltered sound. Then another joins in, and another, until the whole campfire scene turns into a chorus. In that test screening, the theater erupted within seconds. People were crying and slapping their knees, and the silence that had haunted the first 20 minutes shattered instantly. This was, by most accounts, the first mainstream flatulence joke ever put on a movie screen, and it changed the entire trajectory of the film's reception. The laughter didn't fade after that scene either. It built from that point forward until the whole crowd was rolling in their seats. One ridiculous sound effect gave the audience permission to laugh at everything that followed, and that permission is exactly what turned this movie from a corporate liability into a phenomenon nobody could ignore. A single fart joke didn't just get a laugh. It rescued an entire production from the vault. Number 5. Gene Wilder made one demand before he'd take the role. When Mel Brooks called Gene Wilder for help, it wasn't a casual favor. It was closer to a rescue mission. Wilder didn't need much convincing to fly out and save the production, but he had exactly one condition before saying yes. If he was doing this, he wasn't going to play the Waco Kid for laughs. He was going to play it completely straight, with quiet, drunken dignity instead of slapstick energy. Brooks didn't hesitate for a second. That single creative choice became the secret weapon of the entire film. While the rest of the cast leaned hard into chaos, Wilder floated through every scene like a calm ghost holding a gun, delivering his lines dry and almost detached from the madness around him. That contrast made every joke land sharper, because the Waco Kid wasn't just a funny character. He was a tragic one too, a broken sharpshooter hiding out in a jail cell, tossing off some of the film's best lines without ever cracking a smile. Wilder never mugged for the camera once. He just whispered the truth and let the chaos swirl around him. Number 6. Hedley Lamar was revenge disguised as comedy. This villain wasn't just written for laughs. He was written as payback. Mel Brooks reportedly modeled the pompous, power-hungry Hedley Lamar after a real Hollywood executive he'd crossed paths with, someone who talked big, delivered little, and constantly took credit for other people's work. Brooks never confirmed exactly who the target was, but people who worked closely with him apparently knew immediately. Harvey Korman leaned all the way into the parody, nailing the smug looks, the fake intellect, and the pure vanity of a man who thought he was a genius, but couldn't remember his own henchmen's names. The result is a villain so absurd that audiences almost forget how grounded in reality he actually was. And every time he screams his own mangled name in frustration, it lands like an inside joke aimed squarely at an entire industry Brooks clearly had some scores to settle with. Sometimes the funniest villains on screen are really just old grudges wearing a costume. Number 7. The studio tried to turn this movie into a sitcom. After the box office numbers rolled in, the studio saw dollar signs everywhere, so they did exactly what studios do best. They tried to turn the movie into a network sitcom called Black Bart, a cleaned-up, censored, laugh-tracked version with the same characters but none of the danger. No edge, no soul, and none of the jokes actually landed the way they had in theaters. The pilot got buried almost immediately, then quietly resurrected years later. Not to actually air, but reportedly just to help the studio maintain certain rights tied to the franchise. A handful of episodes were filmed, never broadcast to the public, and shelved like the whole experiment never happened. Even Brooks himself apparently refused to acknowledge the project existed. In the world of this movie, a watered-down sitcom version might be the cruelest joke of all because some stories aren't built to be softened. Number 8. A real punch knocked out a real horse on camera. It looks like pure cartoon logic. A cowboy walks up to a horse and decks it cold. There was no trick shot and no clever editing hiding the gag. That was an actual punch landing on an actual horse caught in a single take. The stunt was choreographed carefully, using a trained horse, a controlled camera angle, and a stuntman throwing a real fist. One swing, and the horse went down exactly on cue, in a perfect take on the very first try. A moment like that would almost certainly never make it past a modern animal safety review. But back then, nobody blinked twice. Brooks reportedly said the whole idea felt like a dare between the crew, a chance to see exactly how far they could push things and still get away with it. Somehow they did, and it became one of the most talked about gags in the entire film. The instant that horse hit the ground, audiences realized nothing in this movie was truly off limits. Before we keep going, subscribe if you haven't yet. Drop a comment telling me which movie or show you want me to cover next with strange behind-the-scenes facts. I read every single one. Number 9. The crew couldn't stop laughing during filming. Some scenes needed take after take, and it had nothing to do with technical problems. The crew simply could not stop laughing long enough to finish a shot. During the campfire scene, during Slim Pickens' monologues, and during pretty much every Mel Brooks cameo, camera operators reportedly ruined perfectly good takes because they couldn't hold it together behind the lens. Boom mic operators supposedly dropped their equipment into frame more than once, and the assistant director allegedly had to be pulled off set entirely because his laughter kept bleeding into the audio recordings. Cleavin Little and Gene Wilder somehow kept their composure through most of it, but everyone standing behind the camera was reportedly a disaster. Brooks apparently had to yell between takes just to get things moving again, reminding everyone they were supposed to be working, not enjoying the show. That joy never got edited out, though. You can still feel it in every single frame that survived to the final cut. Number 10. One executive couldn't understand the ending at all. When Mel Brooks screened the final cut, one studio executive sat through the whole thing in total silence. When the lights finally came back up, that executive reportedly had exactly one question for Brooks. Why do the characters leave the movie? Brooks stared back at him and gave the simplest answer possible: because it's over. The ending, where the characters literally ride off the Western set and straight into a completely different movie before driving away in a limo, wasn't just a random gag thrown in for shock value. It was a deliberate statement about breaking every rule the genre had ever set, shattering the story, the format, and the screen itself all at once. Test audiences reportedly loved every second of it. That one executive apparently never did fully get it, and Brooks, by his own account, never bothered explaining it to him again. If you found yourself asking why the characters leave the movie, you probably weren't the audience this ending was built for anyway. Number 11. Cleavon Little paid a price the studio never saw coming. He made history as one of the first black leads in a major Hollywood comedy, and it cost him more than anyone realized at the time. During filming, Cleavon Little reportedly received hate mail, including letters filled with slurs and outright threats. Some viewers apparently couldn't separate the film's satire from their own prejudice, and they aimed that ignorance directly at him instead of the joke being told. Brooks later said that Little handled the entire situation with remarkable grace, never letting the pain show up on set for a single day of shooting. He delivered every line with cool, controlled confidence, matching Gene Wilder beat for beat without ever flinching in front of the crew. But off camera, by every account, it clearly hurt. This movie set out to mock racism directly, and in the process, it forced its own leading man to confront it firsthand, off-screen, in his own mailbox. The fact that Little made all of it look effortless on camera was its own quiet kind of bravery. Number 12. An on-set explosion went off earlier than planned. One of the film's biggest action beats sends a fake toll booth flying straight into the air. On screen, it plays like classic slapstick, but behind the scenes, it came dangerously close to real disaster. The explosive charge was rigged to detonate only after every actor had cleared the blast radius completely. On the actual day of shooting, something reportedly went wrong, and the charge fired early. Debris went flying just seconds after the cast had moved out of frame, and for a moment, everyone on set apparently froze in place. Nobody was hurt in the end, but by most accounts, it was far too close for comfort. After that incident, Brooks reportedly banned all non-essential crew members from standing anywhere near the set during future explosive scenes. And yet, the shot itself stayed in the final cut, because in this movie, even a near miss could apparently still be played for laughs. It's a reminder that some of the biggest laughs in this film came with real risk attached behind the camera. Number 13. Executives hated the title before the script was even done. Before the screenplay was finished, studio executives already had one major problem, and it was the name itself. They thought Blazing Saddles sounded like the title of a 1970s adult film. Too suggestive, too risky, and too strange for a wide theatrical release. Executives reportedly pushed Mel Brooks to change it entirely, offering safer alternatives that leaned far more generic. Brooks' response was apparently laughter, followed by a firm refusal to budge. He told them the title itself was the joke, ridiculous and bold enough to set the tone before the very first frame even rolled on screen. Executives eventually backed off, and the result became one of the most unforgettable movie titles in Hollywood history. Sometimes the exact name that makes a room full of executives nervous is the one audiences end up remembering for 50 years afterward without even trying. A safer title might have sold a few extra tickets early on, but it never would have become part of pop culture the way this one did. Quick reminder to subscribe if you are enjoying these revelations. And tell me in the comments, Do you know any strange fact about this movie that I didn't mention? Let's build the list together. Number 14. Slim Pickens had no idea he was filming a comedy. Slim Pickens had already done dozens of westerns by the time this project came around, so he showed up ready to play it completely straight. Nobody apparently told him the film was a spoof. Mel Brooks reportedly let him believe he was working on a serious western the entire time, because that dead serious delivery was actually the entire joke being played on the audience. Pickens charged through every scene with total sincerity, reacting to farts, fistfights, and total chaos as if it were genuine frontier drama unfolding in real time. And that commitment is exactly why the whole gag worked as well as it did. He never winked at the camera and never once broke character, grounding the film's absurdity by treating every ridiculous moment like gospel truth. In a movie built entirely on satire, having one actor who genuinely believed in the material added a strange, effective layer of credibility underneath the comedy. Slim Pickens ended up being the one man who kept the whole thing honest, even without knowing what kind of movie he was actually in. Number 15. Censors tried to gut the script before filming even started. Long before this movie reached any theater, it had to survive the censors first, and they weren't laughing at all. Entire pages got flagged for racial slurs, sex jokes, religious digs, and Nazi-related gags that censors considered far too risky for a 1970s mainstream audience. One censor reportedly warned that airing the unedited version could end careers. Mel Brooks refused to back down from a single line, insult, or moment that pushed the script past safe territory and into something more historic. Even the film's iconic opening insult, what was reportedly debated for days before anyone signed off on it. Brooks's argument apparently never changed through any of it. Strip away the edge, and you strip away the entire point of making the movie in the first place. This wasn't just meant to make audiences laugh along comfortably. It was built to hit exactly where it hurt, and Brooks fought to keep every uncomfortable line intact. Number 16. John Wayne turned down a cameo but showed up anyway. Mel Brooks wanted absolutely everyone in on the joke, including one of the biggest Western stars alive. He reportedly offered John Wayne a cameo, playing himself during the film's chaotic finale. Wayne apparently read a single page of the script, then walked straight into Brooks's office and said he loved it, but he couldn't do it, because his fans would never forgive him for it. Then he added one more line that stuck around for decades afterward. He'd be first in line to see it on opening night regardless. And by most accounts, he wasn't exaggerating at all. Wayne reportedly did show up for opening night, even though he never appeared in a single frame of the finished film. The king of traditional westerns effectively gave his blessing to the exact movie that tore his own genre apart from the inside. That quiet endorsement from Wayne might be one of the greatest compliments this film ever received. Number 17. This movie got snubbed hard during awards season. By the time awards season rolled around, this movie was already a box office smash and a genuine cultural earthquake. So most people assumed nominations and wins were basically guaranteed. It landed 3 nominations total, covering supporting actress, editing, and original song, and it walked away with 0 wins on the night. The Academy, by most accounts, simply wasn't ready for it. Critics loved the film and audiences clearly worshipped it, but plenty of Hollywood insiders reportedly found the whole project too uncomfortable to celebrate publicly on a stage. The satire cut too sharp, the language ran too raw, and the entire package felt too dangerous to reward with a trophy. Mel Brooks later joked that the Academy didn't hand them any Oscars, but they gave the film something arguably better instead, an audience that keeps rewatching it decade after decade. A statue might look nice sitting on a shelf somewhere, but the laughter from this movie is still echoing more than 50 years later, almost at the end, and the best is still coming. Subscribe so you don't miss what's next, and drop your city or country in the comments. I want to see how far this video is reaching. Number 18. A chaotic musical number almost got cut entirely. The movie ends in total anarchy, with actors breaking the fourth wall and fights spilling across other film sets entirely. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, a full-blown musical number kicks in, led by Dom DeLuise directing a chorus line straight into meltdown mode. It's absurd, it's hilarious, and by most accounts it almost never made it into the finished film at all. Studio executives reportedly found the whole sequence too insane, calling it a waste of time that felt completely disconnected from everything else in the story. Brooks apparently didn't bother arguing the point. He just filmed the sequence anyway and let the results speak for themselves. DeLuise reportedly improvised most of his lines right there on set. The dancers barely rehearsed beforehand, and the entire number got stitched together largely in the editing room afterward. Somehow it became the perfect climax to a movie that had already refused to follow a single rule up to that point. Number 19. Mel Brooks says this film could never get made today. Mel Brooks has said this more than once, and always with a completely straight face. He couldn't make this exact movie today. Not with that script, not with those jokes, and definitely not with that ending intact. The political climate has shifted dramatically. Audiences have changed just as much, and modern studios reportedly wouldn't touch material this raw with a 10-foot pole. Brooks doesn't sound bitter about any of it when he brings it up, though. He describes the film as a genuine product of its exact moment in time, and insists it had to be that way to work at all. Its entire purpose was to punch through hypocrisy and racism with a sledgehammer, offending practically everyone equally, so nobody in the audience could hide comfortably behind polite silence. That specific kind of comedy walks an incredibly thin razor's edge, and once it's been walked successfully, it apparently doesn't get walked again in quite the same way. In Brooks's own words, this film pulled off something close to impossible, and it only managed to do it once. Number 20. Mel Brooks played 3 completely different roles himself. He was already the director, the writer, and the mastermind pulling every string behind the camera on this project. But Mel Brooks apparently wasn't satisfied with just that. He also jumped into 3 separate on-screen roles simply because he could: a bumbling governor, a Yiddish-speaking Native American chief, and an over-the-top director during the film's chaotic final act. The wildest part is that he reportedly barely rehearsed any of it beforehand. He'd apparently show up, throw on a costume, scribble a few extra lines right there on set, and just start filming immediately. Each character plays like a fever dream on screen, and that chaotic energy was clearly the entire point of the exercise. Brooks has said that playing multiple roles let him mock every corner of a broken system at once, from clueless politicians all the way to Hollywood itself. He proved you don't need months of method acting preparation to get a laugh, just nerve, chaos, and a genuine willingness to wear a ridiculous headdress on camera. Bonus, the real star of this movie might have been a horse. On a set packed with explosions, chaos, and enormous egos, guess who ended up getting the best treatment of anyone involved? One of the lead stunt horses reportedly had its own private trailer, complete with padding, cooling fans, and a dedicated personal handler. Meanwhile, some human cast members were apparently changing behind curtains or crammed into shared dressing rooms with barely any privacy at all. Gene Wilder reportedly joked that the horse had significantly better accommodations than he did throughout the entire shoot. Mel Brooks later said that particular horse was basically a star in its own right, and it seemed to know it too. The animal reportedly hit every mark, took direction better than some of the humans on set, and unlike most of the cast, never once broke character during a single take. In a movie that punched through nearly every Hollywood convention imaginable, maybe it's only fitting that one of the most reliable performances came from an animal living in a luxury suite. This film didn't just cross a line somewhere, it drew an entirely new one, then danced across it from start to finish without ever looking back. And those were 20 strange facts about Blazing Saddles, plus one unforgettable bonus about a horse with better accommodations than half the cast. This movie mattered more than a lot of comedies ever get credit for, because it used laughter as a weapon against hypocrisy, instead of just chasing an easy punchline. If you made it this far, leave a like, subscribe, and comment which facts surprised you the most. And don't forget to suggest another movie that deserves a list of strange facts. See you in the next video.